Have you ever watched someone you thought you knew? A quiet, ordinary face you see every day suddenly shatter your heart when you discover the weight of their hidden struggles. Imagine sitting at a restaurant watching your maid, the same girl who cleans your home with a soft smile, being humiliated in front of strangers just because she pulled out 5 crumpled dollars to pay for her share of a blind date. Would you walk away, or would you step in knowing that moment might change not only her life, but yours forever? Lucas Hartley, a 46-year-old billionaire who built his empire from the ground up, wasn't the kind of man to waste time in crowded places. But that night, he sat quietly in the corner of a dimly lit Italian restaurant, trying to hide his identity behind a dark suit and a simple cap. He'd come alone, away from the constant noise of boardrooms and deals, hoping to eat without the usual entourage of assistants and security. Just as he lifted his glass of water, his gaze froze. Across the room, sitting nervously at a small table near the window, was Emma Clayton, his maid, the young woman who mopped his marble floor every morning and left fresh flowers in the hallway of his mansion, earning barely enough to support her younger brother. Lucas had always noticed the quiet dignity she carried, though her hands were often raw from work. But tonight she wasn't in her uniform. She wore a faded but carefully ironed blue dress, her hair brushed back, her eyes full of nervous hope. She was on a blind date. The man sitting opposite her, however, wore arrogance like cologne. Tall, slick hair, expensive watch. His name was Adam. Lucas recognized his type instantly, someone who thought wealth defined worth. Emma smiled shilly, trying to keep the conversation alive, but Adam scrolled through his phone between sips of wine. Barely giving her a glance, Lucas watched, his chest tightening. Something inside told him not to look away. The waiter soon arrived with the bill. Adam leaned back casually, folding his arms. "So you invited me here, right? I assume you've got this covered." Emma's face palled. She hadn't invited him. The date had been arranged by a friend, but she didn't argue. Instead, she reached into her small purse, her fingers trembling. Slowly, she pulled out a few wrinkled bills and a handful of coins. She counted them twice, her cheeks turning crimson. 5 and some change. That was all she had. Adam smirked loud enough for the tables nearby to hear. $5, what is this, high school? You can't even pay for an appetizer with that. Why would you come to a place like this if you're broke? Pathetic. A sharp laughter rippled from a nearby table. Emma's eyes glistened as she lowered her gaze, clutching the money like it was both her shame and her last dignity. She whispered, I just wanted to meet someone. I thought maybe. Adam interrupted, waving at the waiter. Don't bother. I'm not staying. I don't date charity cases. He stood up, left his half-finished drink, and walked out without a second glance. The restaurant buzzed with whispers. Emma sat frozen, tears threatening to fall, trying desperately not to break down. And in that moment, Lucas Hartley, billionaire, stood. He walked across the floor, his polished shoes echoing against the marble. When Emma saw him, her eyes widened in horror. She quickly wiped her cheeks, embarrassed that her employer had witnessed her humiliation. "Mr. Hartley," she stammered, her voice trembling. Lucas didn't let her finish. He looked at the waiter, handed over his black card and said, "Clear her bill and bring her the best dessert you have." His voice carried authority, silencing the whispers around. Then he turned to Emma, his tone softening. "Emma, would you allow me to sit?" She hesitated, torn between gratitude and humiliation. Finally, she nodded. Lucas sat across from her, studying her face. "You don't need to explain anything," he said gently. "But I want you to know something. What happened tonight says nothing about your worth. That man couldn't see your value, but I do." Emma bit her lip, unable to hold back tears now. "I only had $5, sir. I thought maybe it would be enough to show effort. I didn't want to seem like I had nothing." Lucas's chest ached at her words. She had nothing, yet she still carried herself with more grace than most wealthy people he knew. "Emma," he said firmly, "having only $5 doesn't make you less. It makes you stronger, because you still walked in here with courage. And let me tell you something. If money is the only thing Armin values in a woman, then he isn't Armin worth having." Emma finally let out a quiet sob, covering her face. Lucas reached across the table, not touching her hand, but letting his words hold her steady. "Look at me. You are not alone in this. Not tonight. Not ever again." The dessert arrived. A delicate slice of tiramisu with strawberries. Lucas pushed it toward her. "Eat. Not because you need to prove anything, but because you deserve better moments than this." For the first time that night, Emma smiled faintly, though her eyes were still wet, and Lucas Hartley, who thought he had seen everything life had to offer, realized something unexpected. This wasn't about pity. It was about respect. about seeing someone society overlooked, and maybe about something deeper he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. The next morning, Emma expected silence. She thought Lucas would forget the incident, bury it in his busy billionaire life. But when she arrived at the mansion, a simple envelope was waiting for her on the kitchen counter. Her name was written in Lucas's steady hand. Inside, there was no money, no check, only a handwritten note. Emma, you don't have to face the world with only 5 anymore. But remember, even if you did, it wouldn't define you. Let's start again. Not as maid and employer, but as 2 people who see each other for who they really are. Dinner, my treat. This time not blind. Emma pressed the note to her chest, tears flowing freely now. It wasn't about wealth. It wasn't about pity. It was about being seen, truly seen, by someone who could have ignored her, but chose not to. And as she stood in that quiet kitchen, Emma realized something life-changing. Sometimes it isn't $5 that changes everything. It's one moment of kindness from the most unexpected place, and Lucas Hartley knew too. That night at the restaurant had rewritten not only Emma's story, but his own. True worth isn't measured in dollars, but in dignity, kindness, and courage. When someone sees you for who you are, not what you have, that is priceless.